Have you ever felt it? A strange warmth in your heart on a dark night for no reason at all. As if something unseen whispers, "Don't be afraid. I am with you." Ibn Arabi said, that moment, that mysterious peace that settles in your chest is the touch of the final verses of Surah Al-Hashr, because these verses aren't just words. They are the echo of a divine light placed deep within the human heart. In one of his gatherings, Ibn Arabi said, when you recite these verses, you do not call the words, you call the light. There are hearts in this world that look ordinary from the outside, but inside them, a hidden radiance burns quietly, and that radiance is born from the closing verses of Surah Al-Hashr. Maybe you felt it too, that sudden stillness in your chest, a peace that arrives uninvited, or tears that come without reason. Those moments are not random. They are messages sent from above, silent reminders from the divine whispering gently, "I am here." Ibn Arabi said, the heart is a mirror, but when dust gathers upon it, it can no longer reflect the light of God. And these verses, they are the hands that wipe away the dust. They revive what was forgotten, rekindle a warmth you thought had long vanished. Sometimes that light flows through you not as words, but as breath, as remembrance, as peace. And the most beautiful part, when you recite these verses sincerely, you stop hearing your own voice. You begin to hear His name instead. Because with every who the heart echoes, and that echo carries you out of yourself into His presence. Listen until the end, because at the close of this journey, I will share's most guarded secret about these verses. A secret that will forever change the way you recite them. Prepare your heart, for what speaks next is not the tongue, but the light itself. Sometimes in life, you simply stop. No sound, no word, just silence. But even in that silence, a protection surrounds you. Arabi said, whoever recites the final verses of Surah Al-Hashr lives within a circle of angels. Imagine it, an invisible ring forming around you quietly without your awareness. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but you can feel it. A gentle warmth expanding through your heart, as if God Himself has wrapped you in the sound of His own name. He is Al-Hafi, the protector, the guardian, the one who hides you even from yourself. Ibn Arabi described these verses as a spiritual armor. He said, whoever recites them from the heart is covered by a light so pure that no darkness can approach, no whisper can enter. And the wonder is this: that light doesn't only protect you, it spreads to your home, your loved ones, even the place where His name was spoken. For wherever God's words echo, darkness cannot remain. Ibn Arabi taught that the human heart is a house of God. When you recite these verses, you are not calling something from outside. You are remembering the guest who already lives within. And that remembrance fills the house with peace so deep that neither fear nor loneliness can stay. You know that feeling when out of nowhere you feel calm and safe and can't explain why. Perhaps it is because these verses were once whispered to you by a mother's lullaby, or by a teacher long ago. And now each time you recite them, that ancient vibration awakens again. The protection returns and God's mercy surrounds you once more. Ibn Arabi once said, the one who recites these verses hears not their sound, but the language of God Himself. You recite and yet you listen. Each letter returns to you like an echo from eternity until you realize this is not merely prayer. It is a connection. Pause for a moment and reflect. Perhaps even now as you listen you are already within that circle. Perhaps your very hearing of these words is itself a sign. For God protects some souls even without their knowing. And that protection begins with the light of Surah Al-Hashr's final verses. Ibn Arabi said, when these verses are recited not by the tongue, but by the heart, a light rises around the believer, a light that holds them firm both in this world and the next. He once told a disciple, the heart is the mirror of God's manifestation. When the mirror is dusty, you see your own reflection. When it is clean, you see the light of God. Think about that. Every human being carries a mirror inside the chest, invisible but alive, shining with every emotion, every breath. And the polishing of that mirror begins with these verses. As you recite them, it's as if someone is cleaning the inside of your soul, smoothing away resentment, fear, and darkness until only light remains. Then something remarkable happens. You no longer see yourself. You begin to sense the light of God within you. Ibn Arabi said, the heart that recites these verses no longer merely prays. It begins to reflect divine mercy. That reflection spreads outward. The peace you feel begins to touch others. People sense it when they speak with you. They feel calm, though they can't explain why, because that light travels with you. A silent serenity that softens everything around you. Sometimes a person looks at you and says nothing. Yet their gaze feels warm. That warmth is the reflection of the light in your heart. Ibn Arabi called this the transmission of light. Nur al-Sirayya, the way divine light passes from one heart to another, from one word to the next. Perhaps that's why those who live with these verses walk through life more patiently. Because light covers their anger. Light teaches them endurance. Even in loss, a voice whispers softly within. This too is part of the plan of the Most Merciful. And in that moment, you know the light of Surah Al-Hashr has found you. The heart, Ibn Arabi says, is a bridge suspended between heaven and earth. It belongs neither entirely to the ground nor fully to the skies. But each time you recite these verses, your heart rises a little closer to heaven, as if an unseen thread is pulling you upward, lifting your soul beyond the noise of the world. You are no longer just someone who walks on earth. You are one who walks with the divine echo inside. These verses don't just protect your heart, they transform it. They turn it into a center of light. Without realizing it, someone lost in darkness might find their way again just by being near you. For once the light of God begins to reflect through you, nothing around you remains the same. And maybe even now as you listen to these words, that light is touching your heart quietly without your awareness. Ibn Arabi said, whoever listens to God's words draws nearer to his voice. So the more you listen, the closer the light comes. The heart is a mirror, and now that mirror begins to shine. Ibn Arabi said remembrance is the key that opens the door of the heart. But that door does not open outward. It opens inward. Think about that. We spend our lives looking toward the sky to find God. But He has always been inside. When you recite the final verses of Surah Al-Hashr, you are not calling out to the heavens. You are speaking to the depth within you, to the infinite echo of His presence. These verses are keys. Once they enter the heart, they open hidden doors. The first door is peace. The second is forgiveness. The third, surrender. And with each door you pass through, you come a little closer to God and drift a little farther from yourself. Ibn Arabi once said, "Remembrance is not what the ears hear, it is what the heart remembers." That's why some forms of Dhikr are spoken. But the final verses of Surah Al-Hashr are remembered in silence, in the stillness of the soul. When you recite them, a wave rises within you, a warmth, a vibration. With each who, your spirit grows lighter. Each verse carries a name: Al-Malik, Al-Qudus, Elite One, and a part of you heals. Recite another, and your fears unravel. Arabi called this the transformation through the divine names. He said that the names of God awaken the divine spark within the human being. Each time you recite, that spark expands, filling your heart with light. Prayer then changes its nature. It's no longer something you do. It happens through you. It rises from within like a flame that needs no match. And Rabbi said something profound. The one who carries these verses in their heart remains in remembrance even while walking. Their tongue may rest, but their very being remembers. Each step they take echoes our Roman. Each breath they draw whispers a life. Their whole existence becomes remembrance. Perhaps you haven't noticed, but something inside you shifts every time you listen to these verses. An unseen energy turns within you. It cannot be seen, yet it guides you. You wake up one morning and feel peace for no reason. That peace is the echo of remembrance. Because wherever God's name is spoken, light descends. Ibn Arabi ended this teaching with a secret. Remembrance does not bring you to God. It is God who draws you into remembrance. You do not remember Him. He remembers you through you. These verses are that call, the purest invitation. When something within you changes, you don't notice it at first. But one morning you wake up and the world is not the same. The sky is bluer, the wind feels warmer, and your heart is quietly speaking. Ibn Arabi said, when God fills a heart with His light, there is no space left for darkness. That is what these verses bring, transformation. With each recitation, the heaviness dissolves. Sins, fears, sorrows, they fade like shadows at dawn, and in their place descends a peace that cannot be described, only felt. Now, when you pray, you no longer choose your words. The words choose you because your heart has become filled with the light of the divine. Ibn Arabi said, "This is when the heart becomes the mirror of God. You are no longer just a servant. You become a reflection, a vessel of divine light. You look at someone and see God within them. You hear a voice and recognize it as His reminder. In a child's laughter, in a bird's flight, you feel His presence echoing. That is why Ibn Arabi said, everything is His reminder. Perhaps once you were impatient, easily angered, but now something has changed. When anger comes, a quiet voice within says, the most merciful is patient. Be patient, too. That is the sign. The light has entered your heart to see through the color of God. This is no fleeting moment. Arabi called it the gate of awareness. Once opened, it never closes. In every hardship, That light whispers, "Do not fear. You are not alone." This transformation doesn't stay hidden within. People around you begin to notice. They feel a calm when they look at you, as if a warmth surrounds you, an invisible glow. That glow is the echo of God's names within you. Even your silence becomes a prayer. Ibn Arabi called it silent remembrance. And after a while, you realize you speak less, but understand more, because now it is not your mind that leads you. It is your heart, and that heart belongs to Amen, the all-compassionate. That heart has now been refined, disciplined by the touch of the divine. The final verses of Surah Al-Hashr do not merely protect, nor are they only light. They transform you until you are no longer you. You become a vessel of divine love itself. You no longer pray. The prayer lives through you. You no longer carry the light. You become the light. Ibn Arabi said, when God chooses a servant, that servant's every breath becomes remembrance. Every glance, every smile, every silence becomes worship. And in that moment you realize, and you didn't just recite these verses, you lived them. According to Ibn Arabi, the human being was created as the mirror through which God comes to know himself. And that mirror begins to shine through the final verses of Surah Al-Hashr. These are not merely words of protection or comfort. They are a sacred calling, a reminder of your true identity. Each time you recite them, God draws you closer to himself. And one day, when you look back, you'll see no prayer was ever unanswered. No tear was ever wasted. Every moment was leading you here. Arabi said, when a servant prays, it is not the servant who approaches God. It is God who draws near to the servant. So when you recite these verses, you are never alone. He is with you in your breath, in your voice, in the beating of your heart. And here lies the hidden secret. When you repeat the words of God, it is not you remembering him. It is he remembering you. Every time you whisper his names, he is already responding. That is why Ibn Arabi taught that those who carry the verses of Al-Hashr within their hearts taste a reward even before death. Not the fragrance of paradise, but the echo of divine presence experienced here on earth. Sometimes you pray and receive no answer, but then one morning you awaken lighter, your chest clear, your heart at peace, and you understand God has spoken not through words but through state. Ibn Arabi said the heart that recites these verses ceases to be an ordinary heart. It becomes the vessel of the divine names. You are no longer merely human. A light walks within you, and that light unknowingly illuminates the paths of others. To recite these verses, then, is not just devotion. It is responsibility. For once you carry light, you must let it shine. Light is not meant to be hidden. It exists to be shared. And perhaps now, as this video comes to an end, you sit in quiet stillness. But even that silence is prayer. Every word that echoes in your heart draws you a little nearer to him. Let us end with Arabi's words. When light settles in the heart, no darkness can ever imprison it again. These verses, they are the key to that light. Subscribe and take care. See you in the next video.